You spent most of your life as an investor, as a guy that was fascinated by Russia. Obviously, you have a whole interesting family history from Russia and the Communist Party, and you went there to make money, to take capitalism there, and you were very successful, and you had ups and downs, and you saw the inside of the system. But you were what I used to do in the city. You made money, and you made a lot of money for your investors. But for the last 15 years, you've been a legislator or a lobbyist doing a whole completely different thing. How do you do that? Do you miss being an investment banker, an investor, a trader?
Not for a split second. I mean, this is so much more satisfying what I'm doing now. But of course, it's much, I have the luxury of not having to worry about, feeding my children, paying for their schools and stuff like that, because I was a successful investor. And so, I mean, if one can plot out a life where you make some money and then go and do good, it's much easier than just trying to do good from the very beginning, because a lot of times you have to make all sorts of compromises if you just try doing good and you don't have any money. And I don't have to make any compromises. And but it's hugely satisfying. I mean, it's like, I look at my friends who were my peers in the finance world who are still doing exactly the same thing, and I'm thinking, you have no idea what you're missing by doing something truly meaningful.
Yeah, I have the same feeling sometimes about my friends in finance that I left. It's a great thing to do for maybe a certain time in your life, but if you're doing that later in your life, I definitely feel like you're missing out. And even you see people like Ray Dalio who have done that now actually transition to where they just want to pass knowledge and teach and all these kinds of things. So you've got to do that.
I should say there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, and I loved being an investor, and it was really interesting and fun and challenging, and it's like a great game. But the game gets boring after a while.
Right. So you were kind of forced into this, and the situation was dropped on your lap, and your good friend, was killed in a Russian prison. But it was also the time maybe for you to make this transition, and you went with it.
Well, yeah. So I mean, if this terrible stuff hadn't happened to me, if I hadn't been expelled from Russia and Sergei Magnitsky wasn't killed, I might still be doing the same exact thing that all my compatriots are still doing. So I mean, I make no judgment about them doing it. I would probably be doing the same thing, but I was, life circumstances forced me into a life where now I have a life of, fighting for justice instead of fighting for money.
Do you miss things about Russia?
I miss a lot of things about Russia.
Like what?
I mean, the people in Russia, so Russia, we have a very superficial world in the West. You have a beautiful conversation with somebody at a dinner, and they say, make all promises and do all these things, and then you never talk to them again. In Russia, if you have a friend, that friendship, you almost, to have a real friend in Russia, you almost can't. You don't have time to have a job because friendship is so demanding, because the friendship is so real. I mean, the relationships in Russia with the people, with your small circle, are so much more profound than anything I've ever seen in the world. And I still have in my team the people who worked at Hermitage. Long after we all stopped doing business, we all now are fighting for justice. And I've got people, my colleagues have been with me for 20, 25 years, just doing this stuff, because we're all so, glued together as a bonded, as in camaraderie and brotherhood in our mission.
Yeah. So you still have friends that are Russian.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love Russian people. Do you hate Putin?
Well, hate means it gives him some respect that I don't think he deserves. I mean, I consider him to be a menace. I don't really feel hate. I just feel like he's like nuclear waste. He needs to be taken out of this equation.
Do you think he's taken his focus off you for a little while because of what he's dealing with in Ukraine, or will you always have a little special place?
Oh, I've always got a special place. He hates me. You should hear when he mentions my name. You can just see him spluttering. You see his forehead, furrowing up. He just hates me, and he hates me because, I struck him back, and caused him pain, and to allow that to happen, to allow some nobody to strike him back, it's a sends a terrible message to everybody else in the world. If everyone else did the same thing I did, he would be nowhere.
Right. You hurt him more than any single person in the world ever could, maybe even more than a country could.
Well, at this point, I think Vladimir Zelensky has hurt him more than I have. But before that, probably yes.
The greedy bankers are about to do it again. In 2008, they crashed our financial system and nearly bankrupted the entire global economy. Then they received trillions of dollars in government bailouts. And after, they demanded fat bonuses paid for by you, the taxpayer.
It turns out the banks haven't just been screwing the American taxpayers, they're also screwing over their investors. Turns out the banking industry is the worst place you could put your money, despite enormous taxpayer bailouts.
Now the bankers are back to take away your financial freedom. They lie and tell you that cryptocurrency isn't safe. They try to make it illegal for you to choose how to invest your hard-earned money. They lie and say cryptocurrency is used by money launderers and criminals. But look at the record. It's the banks themselves that launder hundreds of billions of dollars every year to the biggest criminal operations in the world.
Leaked documents have revealed how some UK banks have helped criminals, money launderers and Russians under sanctions.
American authorities discovered that the Sinaloa cartel moved $881 million through HSBC accounts as bank officials turned a blind eye to the illegality.
The bankers lie and say cryptocurrency is not a real investment. Meanwhile, the smartest CEOs in the world are buying billions and billions of it. The truth is that banks lie about cryptocurrency because it makes them scared. The banks take $9 trillion per year of your hard-earned money, and they are worried that they will finally be exposed. They're scared because crypto means they can no longer control your money, which means they can no longer control you. They are scared because you might actually understand your money and intelligently decide what to do with it. Now is the time for us to come together, fight back, and take control. It's time to educate ourselves, our families, and our communities. Because financial education means financial freedom. We know that cryptocurrencies will help us build the new decentralized financial system of the future. A banking system that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. A banking system where access to finance is a fundamental human right. A banking system that is free and fair and welcomes all humans on this earth. The DeFi revolution is happening. We, the people, can no longer be fooled. We choose to take control of our finances. We choose to take control of our freedom. We choose to take control of our future. Join us, and let's take back our financial freedom forever.